Hey friends, I'm back. Sorry, there's been a gap. So, what I want to talk to you about today is there's a line in Macbeth by Shakespeare that says, "We all know security is mortal's chiefest enemy." He wrote this hundreds of years ago. There's a reason that Shakespeare is timeless because this is something that is still prevalent now. And as we have cost of living crisis, blah, 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 all this mainstream narrative around lack and around fear and around scarcity. And often we don't understand what is driving us to make decisions, whether we are coming from love, which is based in our heart's wisdom, or whether we are being operated by fear, which is coming from the mind and the intellect to make decisions. And often, when we aren't conscious of where our decision making is coming from, we are being driven by just in case, worst case scenario, play it safe thinking, don't rock the boat, do conform, don't stand out, don't be shamed, don't be embarrassed, don't be mocked, don't show people up, don't, toe the party line, rather than following the heart, which is often guiding us towards much bolder, more audacious, more risky, more exciting, and potentially dangerous choices. Because where our heart is connected to our soul, to our fate, I don't want to use that word, to the big, juicy, expansive reasons why we are here. And if we don't take the time to really learn, and this stuff isn't taught unless you have particularly conscious parents, which most of us don't, this stuff isn't taught. So if you really go within and learn how to listen to your heart, you're going to be leading a very different life than if you come from your head. So if you're with me live, thank you. If you're watching the replay, brilliant. Welcome to my channel. My name's Helen Millar. This is Head to Heart Living, how to live a life less from fear and more from love. Drop me a comment below about what decisions you wish you'd made, or what your heart is calling to you to make decisions now. If you like the sound of my channel, it is a mixture of guidance, awakening, tools, tips, tricks for expanding consciousness, deepening your emotional intelligence, and living a happier, more love-based life that benefits you, but also the collective. As when we live from our heart, we are living our mission, and that is what is creating the future deeper towards peace and further away from fear, right? So yeah, like, subscribe, share if there's someone who needs to hear this right now. Maybe you have somebody yourself or a friend who needs to make a big decision, potentially a scary or uncomfortable one, and is currently not making it because of fear, because security is holding them back. Smash the like button if you like the sound of this, if this video resonates with you. If it doesn't, never mind. There's plenty more content on YouTube and elsewhere. Right. So the big thing I want to talk about, security being mortal's chiefest enemy, as Shakespeare knew way back when, our wish to feel safe in a world that is never the same. So we constantly have seasons changing. It's supposed to be summer now. I need to wear a jacket. Nothing is predictable. Oscar Wilde said death and taxes are the only certainty in life. And if you have the same school of thought of me, they aren't either, because life's eternal and taxes are negotiable, especially if you have more money, because if the loopholes seems that certain politicians and billionaires pay no tax. So they're not necessarily certainty either. Nothing in this life is certain. You wake up. I just saw a talented musician called Sam Lee posted on his social media. He's had to cancel all his upcoming gigs he's looking forward to because he just had to have his gallbladder removed. He didn't wake up when he knew that he was going to spend the next day in hospital. I just got surprised by a trip to Wales. I didn't know last week I was going to go there. that was great fun. I love spontaneity, but uncertainty. But I also, when your car breaks down and you suddenly aren't going to reach where you think you're going to go, or you suddenly get an eviction notice, or you're told your job's on the line, all of these things create uncertainty in our field. And then we can make decisions not from our heart, not from trust, not from connection to our soul, to source, to God, to the universe, but from the fact of, from a place of separation. And in our mind, we see ourselves as separate individuals. We see the world as potentially working against us. We see it as something that we personally have to manage, have to control, have to get right. In our mind, we can become very binary, very right and wrong, very left and right, very us and them, very, are you this or that? We get into little boxes in our thinking. And our heart is much more if we're going to quantum physics, it's much more wave. The mind is particle, it's separate. And the heart field is much more cohesive. It's much more seeing the points of connection between us rather than difference. It's seeing the infinite potential rather than the problem. So when we're in our heart, when we have insecurity, we can feel like freedom. We can say, okay, well, I might lose my job. What else can I do? Is this a chance to retrain to something that's going to light me up more? Is this a place that, an opportunity to move to a different company and up my pay grade? Is this a blah, blah, blah? That's where the heart can take us. But when we're in our head, when we're in our fear, then we're looking for security. We don't feel safe in the unknown. We don't feel safe in the unknown, which is why we want things that we can attach onto, which is why when we get to know people, we ask them what they do for a living, where they're from, how old they are, so we can start to make the unknown known. And there's nothing bad in that. There's nothing inherently negative. But when we are chasing security, which is our ability, our attachment to feel safe from the external. So let me get a mortgage or a house, then I can feel safe. Let me get a certain amount of money, then I can feel safe, or a certain car, and then I feel safe because I feel like I'm being approved of by society or respected. Let me get a pretty partner or a child, and then I feel like I'm pleasing my parents, and then I feel do you know what I mean? There's so much we do to feel safe in the world, but actually the only way that we can feel safe is by healing our wounds and connecting to the truth of this reality, which is that we aren't alone, that from my journey thus far, that we are all connected, that there is a much bigger reality at play than we can see with our physical eyes, that we have a consciousness that birthed this reality, that dreamt this reality, that I would call God, that other people might call the universe or source or have different religious words for. That doesn't, for me, make any difference. But the idea that there is a much bigger scheme here gives me security, rather than how much money is in my bank, how many calories I have or haven't eaten, how much, all these different ways in my past that I look to feel safe in the world, having a partner, having enough money. I never had a stable job. I've always been self-employed as a creative, as a coach, as the things I do now, workshop facilitator, coach, healer, space holder, whatever you want to call me. All of these things where people feel they need to feel safe, are they actually fox straps? Are they actually dead ends? Are they actually cul-de-sacs? Or are they actually shackles holding you back? Are you staying in a relationship that doesn't light you up, that doesn't nourish you because of the security, because you don't know how you would pay a mortgage on your own, or you're not prepared to rent? Like, I work with so many people where their perceived idea of security and safety is actually allowing them to stagnate in life and lead a much more miserable existence and a small existence than they yearn for, or capable of. And then are trying to create happiness within their own cage, because there is a false idea of security. Now, where does this come from? Our ability to feel safe is all to do with our root chakra. And this is the energy system that develops while we are forming from being in the womb to up to we're 2. And if you want to read deeper about this, Anadea Judith has a great book, Eastern Body, Western Mind, which talks to you about the overlap of East and West psychology and practices, about how you can understand yourself better, but also practices about how you can then bring yourself back into balance and healing with that understanding. It's one thing to work out what your blind spot or your area of weakness is. It's another thing to actually then have tools and practical guidance about how to shift it. So when we come to look at the root, this, when we don't feel safe in the world, when we've experienced some form of trauma, this could be something that happens to your mother when you're in the womb. This could be when you cried as a baby and you weren't picked up. This could be not having your needs met on some level as in infancy, and you don't feel safe. And then you can see this play out later in life, where people are constantly looking to earn more money and it's never enough. Or they go to the gym and they're so ripped and built because they want to feel safe, because they can never be strong enough. Right? Things taken to excess to protect themselves, whether people don't leave home or they don't leave partners because they feel that they need a protection because they don't feel safe. All of this can stem from this very young trauma that we experience, and we might not even know of it because it happens when we're so young, or even when we're still in the womb. And this isn't about blame. This is like most, and we now constantly live in a world where we're given all these messages about, the end of the world is nigh, whether the climate crisis or war or government or corruption or cost or blah, 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 blah. Like, you can pick and mix, like, what you want to get scared about, what you want to be disempowered by, what you want to feel apathetic and fearful by, what you want to zone out and just think it's not worth the effort. Whereas I'd say there's a choice you could make where you don't listen to any of that. You just listen to your own heart, you navigate life on your terms, and you create the most beautiful reality you can, creating good for yourself and others that lights you up. Because if we were all doing that, the world would be a really different place. Really different place. And yet when I'm on public transport or, overhearing other people who aren't in the sort of bubble of people I hang around with or spend time with, or the things that I read or listen to, there's just a lot of fear mongering and moaning, and this isn't to criticize that. I've spent time in my life in those places, but it's not solution focused, and it's disempowering, and it makes you feel like you can't make choices or leave or take risks or listen to your heart or lead this big, juicy, audacious life right now because interest rates are on the rise and right? But in any type of crisis, and there's always one we're being told about, if not many, right? There was the Cold War, there were the other wars, there's always war, there's always something happening to make us be pushed in one direction or another. Yet we are in charge of how we feel. And I don't say that lightly, it's not easy, but what the thoughts that we allow ourselves to think, the dialogue that we run between our mind, that is what either allows us to quieten and move away from a feeling that is unpleasant and not helpful, or to start generating new and better ones. Or it allows us to not stop and feel a feeling and then allow it to move through us, which is the healthiest way of doing it, but allows us to just stay in that feeling and wallow and then not release it and then exacerbate it. This isn't about spiritually bypassing the depth in life and the chunky things that need to be felt, because they do, but it's about what story you tell yourself around those feelings. Because emotions are just words we've given to categorize an energy in our body. And it doesn't have to mean anything. You can feel something and release it. As soon as we create the story and the narrative around it, then we tie ourselves into it. And again, that's not to make it wrong, but it's to notice what your patterns are and how often you feel like you're staying stuck in a loop or a pattern of feeling something that isn't allowing you to move your life forward. But if you get into a pattern or a loop of feeling good, of feeling abundant, of feeling creative, of feeling expansive, and it's serving you, then that can be a really helpful way of being. Because, just to come back to where I started, security is mortal's chiefest enemy. And when we feel good and empowered and loved up and trusting in life and in ourselves and in the unknown, and can be in the mystery, because this is a mystery, then we can lead very different existences, and we don't get stuck into believing security is going to make us feel safe. Okay, let me know in the chat. I feel like I've covered this point now. Let me know in the chat what your thoughts are, how you're doing. It's great to be back. It's lovely to see some of you live again. Like, subscribe, and share. Smash the like button. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get more love, heart-based, consciousness expanding content out there, rather than to counteract all the other algorithms of the doom is nigh. And there's a lot of that out there. And, you know, there's a lot I could say about all of that, but that's not what this video is about. I am talking at lots of festivals this summer. If you'd like to join me at Medicine Festival, Heart of the Rose, all about love, the links are on my website if you want to get tickets. Some of those are sold out, 2 of those aren't. My website is hearthealer.co.uk. You can also get yourself some ceremonial grade cacao there, which can help you stay in your heart. And if you want to talk to me about any of my upcoming programs or one-to-one work, or what I really encourage you to do is jump on the newsletter, so then you know what's coming up. But if you want to speak to me about something specific, you can book a discovery call on the Work With Me on my website. All right, people, lots of love. Great to see you. Mwah.